everyone, Simulator Future here. This is take 2 of this video because in the first take I forgot to charge some things. But that's good because I actually learned a few things since then, which I'm going to teach you in this rather janky video. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about Audiobus and we're talking about K-Devices TATAT. But we're also going to talk a little bit about interfacing between the iPad and hardware synthesizers and a little bit of routing in DAWs. Because that's all things we're going to need in order to use the iPad as a sequencer for all this hardware crap. So let's get started, shall we? First off, let's talk a little bit about the basic hardware routing. We're talking about an iPad here. This is a rather old iPad. Basically any iPad that can run Audiobus will do. Why Audiobus? Because Audiobus supports MIDI channels, and MIDI channels are needed to access all the different instruments, basically. Sadly, which I usually use, doesn't support MIDI channels, which is very annoying. But this works, so that's good. The iPad is connected to a MIDI interface, and for this we are going to need to walk a little bit. So I'm going to pick you up. So that's the MIDI interface. It will eventually focus. I'll help it a little bit. It's a iConnect MIDI interface, which is just connected to the Lightning connector on the back of the iPad. So it just runs here. Really isn't an elegant lens to focus, it seems. I'm just going to put it onto manual focus. Screw it. There we go. There we go. So that's the iConnect, and the iConnect is connected to a really old Motu MIDI Express. There we go. Now, because this is a rather old Motu Micro Express, I'm not using any internal routing. I am routing the MIDI through Reaper, simply because it's easier to do, and I'm using all the outputs of the Motu as well. I'm not using MIDI channels on this end, but because the iConnect only has one, we need to use the MIDI channels to route the signal to all the correct synths. So let's just start at a single point and work our way forward, which is usually the best way to do this stuff. Focus. There we go. Cool. So let's start off with actually not using Tata. Let's start off with the drums. For the drums, I'm using the Rozeta Euclidean sampler or sequencer, and it's just a basic Euclidean sequencer, a little bit bigger so you can see it. And if I start this patch, that's the MIDI being sent. Now, how does this work? In Audiobus, we have as a generator the Rozeta. This goes into the Rozeta scaler. This is only there for the velocity control, because I did notice sometimes you get really weird velocity spikes from the sequencer. I have no idea why. So this is only there to force the velocity down to 53. That's all it does. The output for this is the iConnect on channel 10. Why channel 10? Well, it just so happens to be that the JV1080 I'm using for the drums actually uses channel 10 as the drum channel. So I need to route it to channel 10 in order for it to boot the drums. How you set this up is very easily. If you connect the last little plus, you can click on the blue thingy, and you get channel select. We select channel 10. that part is pretty straightforward. So now we're sending channel 10 through the iConnect into the Motu. From there, it still needs to go to the actual JV. And because I'm not using any routing inside the Motu, I'm doing the routing in Reaper, because Reaper is a very cheap DAW. And it works. That's basically my sales pitch for Reaper today. So in Reaper, we have a whole bunch of lanes, which will eventually focus, I hope. Yeah, there we go. So we're looking at the JV 1080 MIDI right now. So the input for the JV 1080 MIDI is port 1, channel 10. And that makes sense, of course, because that's what we're sending from the iPad. And we're outputting it to port 3, channel 10. Port 3 is what I connected my JV 1080 to. And channel 10 again is the drum channel. And that's the entire routing for the MIDI. So if I press play on my iPad, it will send the MIDI right here. We can actually see it light up. Oh. And sending out to channel 3. So that's our first lane. We'll get into the audio routing in a second, because that's some patch bay talk. That's very specific to my setup, so it's not that interesting from a sequencing perspective. So that's our drums. Let's move to our bass. Bass is a little more complicated. It's on this track, I believe. So there we go. How is this set up? Now this is a little bit tricky, and I actually couldn't find a good way to do this in the documentation of Audiobus, but you can actually do this. The thing I wanted to do is use the TATAT key in, because this allows you to dictate which notes are being played, which means you can do chord progressions, which is cool because it gives you a little bit more control of what is going on by being able to force the notes. So how do we do this? For this I use Atom Piano Roll. You can use anything that can send notes. We're using Atom Piano Roll. I'm going to say a new instance. There we go. And in Atom Piano Roll you can just draw notes. Very straightforward. And the thing you want to do is you want to draw in chords for however long you want them to be held. So let's say we do this. We do whatever, this. Cool. Pretty bad chord progression, but it doesn't matter. So Atom is now sending these chords down the row. So one row below we are going to place Tata. And now if we mute everything. Cool. And we maximize this, and you keep an eye on the notes here. Oh, we need to press the thingy. There we go. So now it swaps the notes around: D, F, G, G sharp, D, E. And this is the basis for making sure that we get key changes which are somewhat predictable. Now we want to have key changes for both the bass and the ploings, and we want to have them in the same time, because otherwise things get dissonant, and that's not what we want, obviously. So how do we manage this? It's kind of obvious, but also kind of weird. But what you actually need to do is you need to press the plus on the new lane, select the piano roll again. Oh. bit tricky from this angle, piano roll. And now you can actually choose to either make a new piano roll, or you can say, I want to use an already existing piano roll. And that's what we're going to do. So we say piano roll, and we say instance B. So this piano roll is now outputting whatever this piano roll is doing. So if we create a new instance of TATAT, we make it bigger, we turn on the key follow thingy, and we press play. D of G, G sharp D E. So the MIDI from this piano roll is now sent to this TATAT, but also to this TATAT. You can actually see this in the mixer being represented by these lines underneath. This is something I couldn't easily find, and this makes a very big difference. Why? Because now if we want to change the key, we only have to change one instance, and it will automatically change the key for all the instances of TATAT, which is obviously what you want, because otherwise you need to change keys on multiple places and things will get dissonant and out of tune and stuff. So that's basically what's going on here. We have one instance of piano roll going into two instances of TATAT. Well, that's unfortunate. So that's what it sounds like without TATAT. And we also had a scaler in here. Yeah, that's the next step. It's actually good to talk about. I'm also using Rozeta scaler. That's because the piano roll only outputs one height of notes. So basically your bass notes will be the same height as your plunky notes, which is obviously not desirable. So what I'm doing here is I'm using a scaler to tone it down 12 semitones to make this the bassier side of things, and on this side I have it 12 semitones up to make it higher and more plunky. It's a very simple explanation. So these can be deleted. There we go. So let's now take a quick look at the routing of the bass part. Just to give you an idea of what scaler does. It just forces the notes down. That's all it does. So here we have the iConnect channel 2. That once again goes into the Motu channel 1. And if we look at the DAW, this sound is actually from my JDXA. It will focus eventually. So I have the JDXA MIDI input, port 1, channel 2. That corresponds with the settings in Audiobus. And on this side I have the output set go to port 1 of the micro, channel 1. Now this is one that's very easy to follow. We can actually just look at it, conclude that this is port 1 and it has a MIDI cable, and this MIDI cable runs all the way over the floor and stuff to the MIDI port right there. So that's our routing for the bass thing. Now, to get a somewhat decent bass thing going, I found it very useful to limit the amount of notes, because the more notes, the weirder it gets. And for this, I will just show you what I did. So I've started off with predominantly one note and some small variations. We'll leave the bichords off. Note length not too long, and I only have 4 notes on right now. So if I play this, it will just play 4 notes in different tone heights. and that's it. Now if I wanted to play 8 notes, I can just take this away. If I want 16s, well, let's bring in the drums. As you can see, without putting in too much effort, the thing will basically play itself, and you can just, I don't know, lounge or whatever. It's quite competent at creating interesting things, especially if you kind of rein it in with using the chords. That definitely helps a lot to keep things somewhat organized. Also, the other advantage is you can now quite quickly go through the presets, because if you turn on the skill thingy in TATAT, the little keyboard there, it will always jump to whatever keys are being played in Atom, which makes it a lot more controlled than just going through the presets. So that's a big tip. So that's our MIDI routing. MIDI, going in channels through the iConnect MIDI, through Reaper, which distributes it to the different drum machines and synths. Now, the DAW part can be done with certain MIDI interfaces as well. You can work with a MIDI through box and use the channels set to synths, and you can bypass the entire routing on the DAW thing. Another added benefit is that you can now use VSTs and stuff on your sounds. So that's cool, but we're not going to use VSTs because that would be too easy. So let's get into the sound part of things, because this video is not long enough and might as well make it a little bit longer. So what do we have going on here? Let's start off once again with drums. So I'm going to turn the other things off. Cool, dope. Let's see. So for drums I'm using the JV 1080 down there. Actually, if I put it into rhythm mode, you can see it jump around. Now the routing here is a little bit weird. I have routed the JV to my patch bay here, and it's actually routed out of the JV through a very long cable into the patchulator by board brain. Now this is basically a patch bay for your pedal board, and what I've done here is I've connected the in and out. So the JV sends straight into this patch bay, and this patch bay sends it straight into the Dreadbox disorder. This is what you saw me doing in the previous video. If you've watched it, if you haven't, well, here we go. The only thing is, in the previous video I had it routed through the parallel mixer, which gave me a little bit more control over the volume. That's a little bit different this time around, so let me just show you what it does. So the thing I did in the video was use it in parallel, which I currently don't have set up, but you can easily set it up in your DAW simply by using the second output of the JV, routing it into the patch bay, and using that as a dry signal to blend in. Having that dry signal definitely helps, keeping it a little bit clear once you're messing around with the controls, but still a lot of fun to do. So that's the effect sides of the drums. Let's talk a little bit about the effect sides of the plunky plunks. That's the bass. No effects on the bass. So what do we have going on here? Well, the signal of the D50, right there, thank you, is going to this loop. This is essentially a cable on the back side of the pedal board, just looping around, which means the signal goes straight down, up, into the microcosm. But this is just here to add space, as the microcosm does. It also allows me to do that cool freeze thing, where I just have the buffer going. It goes out of the microcosm into a loop I created here. And this loop goes to my pedal board. This is an internal routing, which basically routes down to here. It is not going to focus at all. Nope, it's not. There we go. And the signal runs from here into the pedal board, into the tri-parallel mixer, and from the tri-parallel mixer it goes into the board brain, where we have a parallel chain for the cirrus and the lure. These get combined in the tri-parallel mixer, go to the Rave Deluxe by cold pedals, through the polychrome, using this cable, which is down here. It gets outputted out of the pedal board, which is this cable. It's not going to focus. Very annoying. Almost. Yeah, there we go. Patch bay. Output, pedal board, outboard. And goes into the interface. So that signal takes quite a long route. And just to give you an idea, that's without the microcosm. That's with the wave, polychrome, lore, cirrus, and there we go. A whole lot of reverby stuff to make it just that much bigger. So yeah, that was a lot to cover, I guess. Hopefully it gives you a little bit of an idea of how this this sort of thing gets routed, both on the audio end of things and on the MIDI end of things, because I think especially the MIDI routing with Audiobus and that stuff is not all that well covered. So hopefully this video helps you a little bit to better understand it, and especially this routing thing with making the multiple instances. Let's say I want to use this Atmos another time, I can just press it here, say Atmos, and say instance A, and this one will be outputted here as well. It's really that easy if you know how it works. That's always the thing, if you know how it works, it's easy. Yeah. So would I recommend doing something like this? I would say not really, because it's a lot of work to set up, and the results are somewhat dubious. But at the same time, it's kind of fun to wrap your head around these things. And once you have something going, you can just press play, lean back, have some fun, or record bits and rearrange it to make actual songs. The nice thing is with TATAT, you do have the live memory thing. I would have really loved to see like 4 buttons, so you could just save phrases and go back and forth between the phrases. So you could create a little bit of a structure thing, but for what it is, it still works pretty well. And this app was like $2.50. Only downside being that I had to buy Audiobus as well to make it work the way I wanted it. But that's a me problem trying to use vintage synths with modern technology. That's the price you pay for doing dumb shit. Yeah, that's it. If there are any questions about this rather long video, if anyone even makes it to this point, drop them down below in the comments thingy. And for now I would say have a great day.